This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. It's straight to the point to respect people's time, and because we know knowledge and wisdom turn to business possibility, and possibility mixed with support and action become reality. In this podcast, we discuss leadership, sales, marketing, operations, team development, quality, and finance to drive sustainable results and everlasting impact to make the world a better place. Thanks for joining us. Jonathon, welcome to the Unlimited Wisdom Podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Brad. I've really been looking forward to this.
Me as well. What you do is going to be really interesting for this podcast. So I've had some people on the podcast, but not like you, sir. And what you bring to the table is really fascinating. So I'm excited to dive in. For the people listening and watching, would you be willing to share, in a summarized way or in a short way, who you are and what you do?
Sure. So as you said, I'm Jonathon Hensley. I'm the CEO and Chief Product Officer at Emerge, which is a digital consulting firm. And for a little more than 2 decades now, I've been working with startups and leaders of Fortune 500 companies in helping them develop their products and services using technology. So whether you're building the next Uber or you're thinking about how you might automate your customer service, we come in to help really bring value to your end consumer so your business can thrive.
Love that. And so here's where I jump in and say, wait, no, don't go away yet. Because when it comes to technology, I'm sure you know, like some of the entrepreneurs are like, oh, tech. Yeah, okay, I'm out of here. there's this, not with everybody, of course, but with a large number, there's some fear around technology. And given that you're an expert in this, you may or may not see it as often as I do. So I would just want you to dive right in. Like, what would you share about that subject in general, Jonathon?
Well, I think it's actually a really interesting way to kind of enter the conversation, because I think there is a tremendous amount of fear about technology because, one, for many, we're all users of technology in some form or fashion, but actually to be creators and builders of technology is a completely different ballgame, and it requires a very essential set of skills and competencies, and it's a huge investment for any size of business to make when they're looking at technology, especially when they make a shift from using other people's digital products, software that they use for their business, versus choosing to create some sort of digital product or service offering that they're now providing to their end customer and they have a responsibility for. And so there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of expectations and excitement around technology. And then often the technology, doesn't fulfill those expectations. And then eventually that technology catches up with us all and then far exceeds our expectations of that technology. And that's a very common phenomenon in the technology space. And we see it happening in every sector. It doesn't matter if you're in food and beverage or you're in hospitality or finance. We see, this technology is just basically now an integrated component of the way businesses are operating, how they're transforming, how they're making themselves more resilient in the world. And it's challenging a lot of leaders who are absolute subject matter experts in their field, incredible at what they do, but it's really pushing them to develop new skills and lead differently to embrace these new technologies. So it's a lot to overcome. And I think it's important to recognize that technology is hard. People want to make it sound easy. It's not. It's why there's, a handful of, really successful, thriving, unicorn software companies out there versus the rest. And it's important to really recognize where the pitfalls are so you can make great decisions as a leader in making sure your investments are really thoughtful.
Love that. I love all of that. I mean, there really is a lot of fear around there. I love that you you were very honest there too, though. I mean, given what you do, I mean, you're saying like, hey, look, it's hard. It's not easy. It can be challenging. I mean, I think there are a lot of people out there, as you said, who try to simplify it. I mean, that's the marketing piece, right? Like, it's simple and easy. We can do it for you in 10 days or 2 days or, whatever the marketing is. And I think the message you're delivering here is a little bit different, like a little different. And so I commend you for that. Kudos.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting over the years, when I first got into technology and you see kind of this boom through the late 90s and the early .com era, there was so much excitement, but what we were creating was in the world of internet technology was pretty much net new. I mean, it really was kind of the Wild West in the tech sector. And everybody was trying to kind of figure out, well, what does this mean? And then it started to normalize a little bit, and we all realized, oh, we all need a website, or we all need some sort of presence out there for our business. And it became synonymous with having a business card, or for those that are a little bit older, it's like being in the yellow pages. You had to be somewhere. For those listening that don't know what that is, that was a big book where all the names for companies and people were in there. And it's now completely transformed every facet of our lives and business. And these things have evolved over time, but there's so much rapid change happening within technology. There are a lot of facets that have been now standardized around just great business practice and how you develop great products and services that really connect with the needs of customers and create real value that's measurable, that has a sustainable business model behind it. And then there's this stuff that's still wildly net new, like AI right now, which people are really excited about, but also equally very concerned about. And that's really fair. It's a fair concern to have when you're trying to figure out, where does this impact me? How do I try to get my head around this new technology that everyone seems to be talking about right now, but where does it fit in my business? Because just trying to adopt something new just because it's the new topic or the big exciting thing might actually hurt your business. And so this is a real big challenge for a lot of leaders to really wrestle with. And I think it's important that we have really honest conversations of what technology is and isn't, because at the end of the day, it's just a tool that has to be there to serve people.
Couldn't love that anymore. There's no way. It's a tool like any other, and it depends on, having the right tool at the right time in the right place and using it, leveraging it properly, right? And so there's only so many people that know how to do that. People like yourself, right? And so that's fantastic. I literally mean that. I'm not just saying that. I love what you said there. So yes, there's a lot of fear around this because it's changing on a regular basis, and that's part of what what creates that fear is like, well, I could spend the time and learn this. Is that the best use of my time? Because then I'm going to turn around 6 months later, it's going to be something totally different anyway. So of course people have some reticence around that. So I love that.
Absolutely.
So Jonathan, I'm really interested to know. We're going to dive in. You know what? I'm going to ask the next question, but I want to dive in just a little bit deeper. So now these are probably I'm sure these are really basic questions for you, but there's going to be some people here listening and watching that, want to know a little bit more. And so in your own words, if you'd be willing to just speak into what really is UX, UI, and API. Could you speak into those three just a little bit, just to give it, like a common definition? There's a lot of people that don't know what that is.
Sure. So it gets mixed up all the time. And so this is a great question to bring some clarity to. And before I give a definition of these things, you're tapping into something, Brad, that I think is equally really important when we talk about kind of the challenge that leaders have, is that there are all these terms and acronyms and technology that you're now bringing into your business. And people have very different understanding and definitions of these things based on their experience and their expertise. And even those that have maybe been in technology or been using technology for a long time, sometimes unintentionally are making mistakes on how they interpret these things because they're users of these skill sets or these technologies. But again, being creators using these things is very, very different. So there's just an intimate knowledge gap that tends to happen. So I think you're bringing up a very, very important, thing where common knowledge and understanding of these things is really super powerful for business leaders. So let's take the first one, UX being UX standing for user experience. And so from a user experience design perspective, the best way to think about this is as this is building the architecture. Think about if you could architect the experience that you want your customer to have from the first time that they meet you, to getting to know you as a business, to selecting your product or service, then using that product, and then hopefully running out to their friends and telling them all about your product and service. That is what UX is doing. It's designing the experience, the architecture, the foundation for what that experience is going to look like. And so very much just like building a home, that UX discipline is focused on the architecture, making sure that all the right things are happening at the right time along that journey that the customer is going through.
Love that.
Now, in comparison, UI, which stands for user interface, is the actual look and feel of the interaction that's taking place between you and the customer in a digital product, or maybe think of your website as just one example. So that look and feel has to basically amplify the experience you want to create for that customer. So let's just use a case of a really common one is maybe you're really focused on being the most trusted provider of your service in your category. Well, what does that design need to look like and feel like in order to imbue a sense of trust? What is the structure of that, though, from an architectural point of view that also needs to do that? Are we going to throw everything at them all at once? Or are we going to thoughtfully break it up into digestible chunks, building trust incrementally? Are we going to bring them along in that journey, educate them, empower them, and then bring a look and feel that imbues that confidence and reinforces that value you want to deliver? And so that UI is really that reinforcement, that amplification of what's taking place. And so that's a really important differentiation. So going back to the house analogy, one is the blueprints and the architecture of it. The other one is like, what are the finishes? What does it need to look like? Are you putting in hardwood floors and granite countertops, or are you choosing something else? What does that need to look like to create the experience and the feel that you want with inside of working with you as a business? The third one, Brad, I think you said was API.
I did.
Which is okay. So this is an application protocol interface. This is actually from an engineering side of things, which is on the other side of it. It's actually a service you provide from your digital product or service that actually allows you to integrate or connect to another one. So oftentimes we might have, for example, a customer relationship management system of some kind, CRM, as it's often referred to, that is, let's say, the source of truth for all of the customer information we're collecting. But that might need to integrate with a marketing automation tool, maybe a customer service tool that we're using. Maybe if you're a manufacturing business, it ties to your demand manufacturing process. There's many, many different types of APIs, but the API is the connective tissue between these systems that allow them to talk to one another. And so we leverage the APIs in order to bring these systems together to create more powerful and unified customer experiences and to enable our employees to fulfill the promises that we're making.
Then I'm fascinated about this. And I'm wondering if because I thought you had a great analogy on the first two, and I'm wondering if we could tap into that same analogy to illustrate the third. So what I'm hearing you say, and you may need to correct me here, please, because with your expertise, but what I'm hearing you say is that, using that same kind of house, you're building a house and the flooring with the UI and the UX, and then the API might be the electric. So you have some lamps and you have some light switches and the electric flowing through that, like tapping into those two things, maybe the API, or do you have a better analogy?
No, that's actually a really good one. So think of the API as I have all of the wiring, the electrical system in my home, but I have to connect it to the grid. I have to, connect it to, the city that I live in. And so I can draw power, from that and light my home. And so in many cases, we're connecting to the other infrastructure, like the lighting system or your plumbing, your intrusion, and we're making these things. So all of these elements that we want to be able to use and experience in our home function and function the way that we intend them to. And so that's literally what APIs are allowing us to do. It's allowing us to connect different pieces of infrastructure, different elements in our home to a bigger system or broader set of systems that allows us to create incredible connectivity and unlock incredible opportunities as a customer.
Love that. Thank you so much for your putting that in your own words and, from your experience. And I think there's probably some people listening and watching saying like, I know that already, but there's some that don't, right? But what I think is really important here is having a unified understanding of really what those are. And that's really helpful no matter who you are or what phase of business you're in, whether in the beginning stages or you're seasoned. It's really important to come together with the proper. Sometimes labeling is good and definitions are good, and sometimes they're not. Right.
Well, I think to your point though, they're incredibly important in this context, because if you have an organization, whether it's a small team or you have a very large organization and you're continuing to grow and scale, and the more people you have, the more critical this becomes and the harder it is to manage, is that we all are focused on different parts of the business. And these definitions are important because we need to understand them in the same way so we can collaborate and work together. And this is one of the biggest challenges you see even in the best tech companies in the world that are building technology. They're constantly their leaders are spending time to make sure that the understanding of an engineering team, a design team, the finance team, the sales team, of these kind of key fundamental pieces is the same, so that they can work together to effectively drive customer value. And it's a very, intricate thing. It's like being the conductor of a symphony. It takes a lot of moving parts, and it requires that conductor to make sure we all know our place and how we fit in delivering that value. And so these definitions and these understandings of what these things are actually incredibly valuable for every facet of a company.
I'm smiling a really big smile right now, Jonathan, because as an integrator, I mean, what you just said to me, I was like, yes, I just want to jump for joy because of when all of that connects together. And then the user, I mean, it is all about the user experience in the end, right? It's what's being delivered and how the experience is and all of that. That's why we do what we do, to serve people, right? So whether it be convenience or something else, but it's to serve. And so when all that comes together, it's a magnificent journey. So I love that. Jonathan, we're going to switch gears. We're going to jump in. I'd love to know, for you, with your vast experience, what's the best thing about being in business?
My favorite part, I mean, after 20 plus years of doing this work, is honestly, I love getting to understand people's stories and understanding what unique perspective they have on problems and how they're trying to solve them for customers. To me, that's the most fascinating thing, because everybody's bringing their unique life experience and expertise, whether they're a financial planner or they're a CPA or they're, trying to build the next, car company, whatever it may be. Working with leaders at every level has just been absolutely enthralling to me. I can just never get enough of it. I love listening, hearing those stories, seeing what that perspective is, learning more about the world from their point of view and through their eyes, and then helping them solve those problems that they're trying to tackle, and bringing some insight of how you do that in the most successful way and build the most successful and competent teams to do that, not just once, but in a scaled way consistently over an extended period of time. And so that really is what I love about, the work that I do, and really helping them set the strategy that's going to enable the success and the outcomes that they're looking for.
Strategy, insight, leadership. You said so many things in all of that. I love. Just wrapped it all together in a bow. I love that, Jonathan. That's great. Here's a question. Like, this is one of my, I already threw it out there. I'm an integrator. I feel like you have some of that too, if not all of it. So you get it, and there's a lot of people listening and watching that do as well. For everybody out there, I love this question. We hear from other businesses out there that they're getting so much business that sometimes, we scale fast sometimes, right? Or a lot gets thrown at us. And so sometimes when we go through that, there's this chaos or this feeling of overwhelm. Maybe you're still small, but you're still feeling it. So would you be willing to share your thoughts on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think that there's a great book called Blitzscaling that was written by Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn, and his co-author, Chris Ye, who's incredible. They talk about when you're scaling, when things are going great, there's always going to be fires to put out, but just, let the little ones burn, focus on, the core of the business. And I think when you have a lot of, opportunity for growth and you're seeing this incredible, you need to realize, don't sweat the small stuff. Focus on the things that really do enable growth and scale. And I think one of the key things there is also recognize that can sometimes be limited. So we find market fit, we have a surge of incredible opportunity, and then we focus so much on delivering on that opportunity that we lose sight of what we're trying to do big picture. And so we have to hold on, I think, as leaders constantly, when we have this incredible, and exciting growth, we really also have to hold on to the fundamentals. Are we staying on track with our vision? Are we letting ourselves get diluted? Are we making sure that we are protecting the value that we're creating for the customer? And what is that path to profitability for the company that we can maximize as we're delivering that value? That's going to create, a competitive advantage that allows us to sustain that growth. And so I think it's not losing sight of those fundamentals, if you will, as we have this opportunity, because it is so exciting, it's so enthralling, but we do get distracted by the chaos of things. And we have to stay anchored to at least those, core things as we go, because that's really going to protect that growth long term.
Love it. Key theme in what you delivered there. Easy to get off track, but we're here for a reason. What's that reason? Stay with the fundamentals. I heard you say fundamentals twice, and I think there's no better or greater advice out there. Is when times get tough, just focus in, like you said, and stick with the fundamentals. That's what works. That's what drives things. Great. Love that. Jonathan, here's a fun question for you. What other successful business owner, like yourself, of course, ought to be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Well, one that comes immediately to mind is, I'm lucky to call him a friend as well, is Robin Way from 𝐇𝐢𝐠𝐡. He does amazing work helping companies look at data and understand their customers and how to set pricing strategy. And I think it's one of the things that is, it's so difficult to do and do really well. And he has such an incredible way of helping an organization understand where their opportunities are and what you can do. And I think he would be a phenomenal guest.
Love that. That is such a fascinating area. Glad you spoke into it. And I love that. And I studied that by somebody who's much more educated than I. And it's fascinating. I mean, it's a science in and of itself. So I definitely look forward to hopefully having a conversation with him. Thank you. Let's get to the crux of this, Jonathan. I know you have a lot to deliver and you have a lot of experience, but let's try to zero in on one. What's one, the best you can? What's one piece of advice, Jonathan, that you would share with other business owners?
Well, I would say that, let me take one step back. About 10 years ago, Brad, I started becoming obsessively curious about this idea of like what drives success versus failure in businesses and in product. And this took me down a really interesting path of interviewing hundreds and hundreds of business leaders from all over the world at companies of all sizes, including product teams. And one of the key things that came through all of that is that there is a staggering percentage of companies that are dealing with underperformance and failure. Some research will tell you it's like, up to 90% statistically speaking. But the people that are consistently driving growth and success, and not just once, but like again and again, through decades of their own careers, they have one common attribute that I think is that I get most excited about when you really start to peel it apart and understand it. And I think this applies to every business. It's not just for, if you're doing digital products and services, even though that's where I like to focus personally. But the one common thread that every single leader had was that they focused on alignment. And let me unpack that for a second, because I think it's kind of seems generalized otherwise, is they really understand that especially today, people want to understand how their work has meaning and has impact. And so these leaders are focused on individual alignment, making sure that every role in the company has clear line of sight to how their contribution matters to the company and to the end customer and how they deliver on their products and services. And then they also recognize that you need to have team alignment, which is all about how do you bring different people together to accomplish a goal and to solve a problem. And they're coming with unique expertise and experiences in their life, and you want them to achieve these things successfully. So they need to be aligned on the intention. What are we trying to drive? Why is it important? What are the outcomes? They need line of sight so they understand what success looks like. And then the third one is around organizational alignment, which basically means that our mission for the company, our vision for our product, our strategy, and how we're setting our objectives are all in alignment with our resources and expertise. And then the last one is market alignment, which is really, do we truly understand the needs of our customers? And needs are broken down into two ways. What's the psychological need? Like what's that emotional need that they have, and versus the functional need. So quick example for those listening, think of Volvo. What are they known for? Safety, right? Safety is their product. That is the psychological value that they deliver. They've been making cars for decades. The cars are getting better and better and better. They're always, great cars. They get you from point A to point B in style. But the reality is that technology, the functional value, is constantly changing and evolving. They're not competing against Toyota or Kia on functional value. That's how they create those table stakes from their perspective. The non-negotiable for Volvo is safety. And that's why you buy a Volvo. So I think that when you see leaders who can understand alignment at all four levels and bring it together, it's very, very clear why they have such passionate and impactful organizations and teams. And leaders, that have done that, I see consistently beat the odds because they're successful in just about everything that they do, because they understand how you connect those things. And I think that for those listening, if you can understand those four levels of alignment in your organization, you have the potential to dramatically increase your own impact and scale your business.
That is fantastic, Jonathan. And I mean that most sincerely. I was trying to put all that together. So ITOM is what I took away from that. So the item that we're talking about here is individual. Correct me if I'm wrong, but individual. So individual alignment. Hey, what's driving you? What are you driven by? What are your strengths? Like all those things. And then next is organizational. So how does that fit into the organization? What are you contributing? How are we contributing? How are we serving the client and the organization that you work with at the same time? Both of those things are aligned as well. So now you have a combination. And then you have, let's see, IT. I missed one. So it's individual team. There you go. I was watching your face, so I saw you. And then organization, how they all fit together. And then you have the market. And the way I envisioned that was sort of those Russian dolls that fit into one another. It was like
that's a really good metaphor. Yeah, that
all
works
kind
really
of sort
well.
of coming together. So when you get them all nailed down, as a leader, as an individual contributor, as a team member, as an organizational member, as a market member, then you get real alignment. And I think that's one of the better descriptions I've ever heard of alignment. Alignment greater than assignment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is the absolute force multiplier in business. It is how you can do incredible things. It really is the key to where 1 + 1 = 3. I mean, it is that's really what it does in an organization. It reduces resource waste, it reduces rework on our efforts, it allows us to focus on the right things at the right time. It really is an incredible asset. One of my favorite authors, Daniel Pink, wrote a really great book called Drive, where he talks about motivation. And in his own research, he found, that, what are people looking for? They're looking for purpose. They're looking for, how to increase their skills and become the most, the best version of themselves. And they're looking for autonomy. And that's exactly what alignment does for people. When we're aligned, we understand, the meaning that we have, and our leaders are making the connection for us. They're showing how that our contribution matters. They're helping us understand, if we don't have the competencies, what we can focus on to become better. That becomes career path. That becomes personal development. That becomes how we integrate with others, or who we need to bring in to work with in order to reach a goal. And then when we have that understanding, our leaders can give us more autonomy. As leaders, we can trust that we've communicated everything that's necessary for the people that make up our organizations to do their best work. And that is a requirement. That creates a safe place for that autonomy to exist. And so there's so much great work happening around this right now that really reinforces how critical it is. And I think it's where, again, I get really excited. I just think it's one of the most profound things that on the surface seems simple. Behind it, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of things to do. But leaders that do it, and some of them do it just instinctually, quite candidly, they are just incredible change makers.
Well, another thing that I love about what you shared here is, a lot of these podcast topics, oftentimes, there's no actionable, items. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so somebody's listening, and it's like good, and it's educational, but there's not a whole lot that they can do. And so what some of the feedback we've heard is like, well, that's just great. I enjoyed that, but what can I do? So if I'm the person that's listening to this and watching this, and they're thinking to myself, well, I can't set the operational initiatives or the organizational initiatives, and I can't set the team. I have some ideas of how I might respond to that, but I'd love to hear like your response to that and how you've moved through that, Jonathan. So I pass the mic back to you.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think that, depending on your organization, where you sit in the organization or what stage of your career you're in, you may not feel empowered to address that. I would say absolutely everyone listening, you are. And the reason I say that is because we are all responsible for how we choose to come to the work that we do. Mm. And so it's really about personal responsibility. And I really look at, when you look at alignment within these best organizations, alignment is being built from the bottom up and the top down. It's not some mandate that comes from the CEO of the company. Now we're aligned. It's like, here's our vision for the company. Everyone gets it. No. Okay. And half the time it's aspirational. It's not actually what I would consider a truly great or effective vision, whether it's for the company or the product that they're working on. And that's a whole topic in itself. But the real opportunity is, if you're within a team, start for yourself. Connect what you do every day to out towards what is happening for the customer. What impact does your product or service have on their life? Recognize that. Start that dialogue. Be a voice of conversation around that. That is the fuel that drives the organization you work for. So take responsibility and develop that. And what I find is that a lot of team members are cautious or concerned about bringing these things up to their leaders or the owners of a company. And what I find is good leaders are always excited. They love having these conversations. When you bring it up, they're like, yes, let's talk about that. I've been, they're dying for somebody to ask them about what this means, or why they're so excited, or why they've invested, their entire life savings and all of their time into this thing that they do. And their passion, will be there to meet you. And I think that it's a missed opportunity. One of the things that I used to do when I would coach or mentor folks, so the first thing you need to do in a new job is ask everybody that can't help you out for coffee. And the main reason is if you work within a team, you get oriented towards that team. But it's like, well, I want to go talk to finance. Okay, so I have coffee with so-and-so in finance, and now I start to understand, like, well, how do you see your role in fulfilling the company vision? Tell me, what are your goals here in this team? How are you guys measured in what you do? And you start to build relationships. And these relationships are paramount, and especially in the context of product, because in product, a product team has an incredible responsibility to communicate upstream, downstream, and across the organization while collaborating simultaneously. And it's a very difficult thing to do if you're not developing relationships and you don't have line of sight to the goals and the needs of others in the organization. And so it can feel like you're really fighting an uphill battle. But if we approach it from a place of alignment and trying to understand, what these dependencies are, we can really start to facilitate change, and we can start to break down silos, and we can start to work faster, and we can increase our collaboration, and we can start inviting maybe outside teams into discussions or working sessions that were never possible before. And that's when you really start to see some magic start to get unlocked in these organizations where maybe that hasn't been there before.
Again, we're back to the 1 and the 1 make 3, or 1 and 1 and 1 make 12. I love it. This is great. And yes, I'm being humorous, but in a slight way. But there's a strong theme here, is that alignment helps grow. And there was also been a strong theme that was sort of underneath or behind this, sort of hidden in what you said, that I picked up on, and that is perspective sharing. So this is several times I picked it up in your message, and I love it. I want to highlight it. I want to showcase it, that perspective sharing goes a long way when you understand the strengths of other team members and how that all ties together and integrates. That's powerful stuff. Jonathon, I want to thank you. So we're not done yet. So hang with us. We'll be wrapping up here pretty soon, but we got a little bit more to dive into. Jonathon, thank you so much. Before I ask the next question I ask of every guest, I want to dive in, and if you would just quickly, you've been really humble on this podcast, and I want to draw out some more like what I know you're so passionate and excited. I mean, we had a great conversation before this about what you do, and I don't want to say nerding out on, but maybe you might say that, I don't know, nerding out on the stuff that you do, however you describe that. Just unabashedly share what kind of initiatives you're into, how you're serving people, how you're helping them. I want to hear directly what you're into, so that people listening and watching so they know.
Yeah, well, Brett, I really appreciate that opportunity to share. Right now, I think like a lot of this conversation, right now there is so much incredible opportunity that gets me excited about what people can be doing with their creating digital products or services or taking digital to add more value to their existing products and services that they provide. And so for me, the excitement is helping teams and leaders of organizations understand what is the path to profitability and value that needs to be created in order to take their organization to the next level. And so that work is really where my core focus is. It's if you're an early stage company, it's usually focused on, I need to get to market fit, and I need to start driving the future of the company. If it's a company that's been around for a while, a lot of times it's like, well, hey, I need to do this in order to scale. I need to meet the new needs and expectations of our customers, and getting them into that headspace, understanding not just what their customers do, which they usually have a pretty solid hand on, but why they do the things that they do, and then how to actually turn that into opportunity for growth and unlock the potential within their organization on how they deliver their products and services. I just get so excited for that. And the alignment piece is a byproduct of all of that. When you do all of the rest of that right, we're building alignment as we go. So, and that's like the ultimate reward for me. Like if we can, alignment is not the thing, we're jumping in to do. It's the byproduct of how we do what we do for clients. And I think it's really exciting to have those conversations, because you see the light bulbs going off, and they understand their industry, they understand their customers so well. And when you start to help them get another perspective and a new set of insights, a piece of information, designing that house, that experience, like we were talking about for the first time, and being able to map that, you see just so many incredible things getting done. So one of the areas now around that is AI. And so a lot of conversation with leaders about, well, how does AI fit into what I'm doing? And the reality of it is that it may be a fun tool for your team, or it may be this incredible opportunity. The real question is what value does it provide, to customers? Is it going to get in the way of that value, or is it really going to amplify what you do? If you're a relationship-oriented business, don't let AI take that away, because you're really giving away something to, a technology that is wonderful for a few core things, but it can't do it all. And it's not as intelligent as you think. So it cannot replace expertise. And that's a really fundamental thing in technology now that I think is just super exciting. We're really getting to this intersection of what people want and really need from technology in such a closer and more intimate way, because it's happening so fast. And those things are the things that just get me really excited, because I've lived at that intersection for so long.
I love it. I love it. Ultimately, it's a tool that makes our lives in our businesses better. I dig it, Jonathan. Well, I'm going to ask a question that I ask every guest. The reason why I ask this is because I believe, and I imagine you share this too, that we work to live, right? I saw this in some of the theme of the things you're sharing today. And so we work to live, not live to work. Even though we might love what we do, we still do it, to live. And so what's the most fun vacation you've ever had? I'd love to know.
Well, my wife and I have two little boys, as I mentioned to you earlier. And, our favorite thing right now at this stage is just going somewhere warm. We live in the Pacific Northwest, so it rains a lot here. So the joy we get of going somewhere warm and just watching our kids play and explore is absolutely the best. And so we've had a couple of trips in the last 2 years that have just been, from my perspective, magical. It's an opportunity to disconnect, and I can just be 100% present with those two kiddos, and watching them, see the world through, their own, fingers and toes as they play in sand and they explore, things for the very first time. And that novelty of, experiencing those things from their perspective is absolutely, I can't imagine anything better. So I just wish time would slow down a little bit, so I had more opportunities with them to do that.
Yes. It goes so fast. I can assure you, as we talked about in the
Yeah.
beginning. I love it.
Well,
Jonathan,
you know all too well, Brad, but I certainly, I couldn't agree more.
yeah, it goes really fast, lightning fast. Jonathan, thank you so much for, I mean, I realize you took a chunk out of your day to be here to serve others, to connect to others, to be here to deliver a message and just to share a little bit about, what you got going on, how you're serving people. So I appreciate that. I know the people listening and watching appreciate that. When somebody sees this or listens to this and says, wow, I need to know a little bit more about this, and I need to learn a little bit more about, Jonathan and what he's into, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, I definitely encourage anybody who's listening and curious to look me up on LinkedIn. Reach out, connect, say hello. I'm always happy and available to have a conversation. Love to hear your ideas or your challenges and see where I can help. Also, I would encourage to visit emergeinteractive.com, and you can also get in touch with me through the website there.
Love that. So now I'm going to double down on what Jonathan just said. I have seen his website. It is super sharp. There's some really helpful things right up front and center. So you don't have to go too far. It's right there on the homepage. You can dig around a little bit, but there's some great info there. Great site. I want to encourage you to do something a little bit different. So don't just listen and watch, but actually take some action, execute something, go to the website, check it out, poke around a little bit, see what questions you have. And then he just made a tremendous offer. So someone in your position, John, that offers to say, hey, reach out to me. That is a tremendous offer. And I want to encourage you, if you're listening and watching, do that very thing. But Jonathan, thank you very much for being on. I celebrate you.
Brad, thank you so much. As I said, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time now, and I'm really, it's just wonderful to be here with you today.
My pleasure.
This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. If you're looking for more on leadership, sales, marketing, or operations to drive team development, higher quality, and high-level sustainable profits, we encourage you to join the Built for Brilliance community on Facebook or reach out to us about one of our mastermind groups, coaching or consulting, or even fractional COO services. You can reach us at buildbrilliance.net/contact. We thank you for listening, for sharing the show, and appreciate your rating and reviews, as this makes more shows possible. Thanks for joining us.